Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Game Telecom video we're going to be discussing a recently discovered flaw with 6th generation or later Intel Core processors. This flaw allows a malicious user to run code via a USB 3.0 port simply by plugging in a thumbstick, and then with that thumbstick enabled they can run any code they wish, and this includes but not limited to keyloggers. They could potentially just trash your system by, let's say, rewriting the BIOS and making it unbootable, or running viruses, or simply, well, stealing all of your data. Now, researchers from Positive Technologies have revealed that this is due to the nature of Skylake and later processors and how Intel decided to create them. So let's go into that in just a moment. However, there are a small couple of caveats. The first caveat, as I said, is that it is only Skylake or later. So if you happen to have an older processor, let's say the 5th generation, then you are absolutely safe. You don't need to worry about this. The second thing is it is only going to affect the U series processors. But while that does allay fears for desktop users, let's say you've got a 6700K, then you are safe, but arguably that's kind of worse. Because if you are someone who happens to have a desktop, there's a good chance that you know who is coming into your home, and there's a much better chance that you are therefore more safe in who is accessing that data, who is accessing or has access to your desktop. On the other hand, mobiles / laptops / I don't know, tablets, anything like that, you can argue is actually at a higher risk. The reason I say that is because it's very easy just for a moment to turn your head away and someone to plug something in and then perhaps run some code, and then, well, you're pretty screwed. And this can happen quite easily. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you're in Starbucks, someone, you're just turning to get some coffee from the counter, someone puts in a USB stick, and it takes a few seconds, remember, and, well, Bob's your uncle. Now, let's talk about why this happens, and is there anything you can do about it? Well, first things first, the reason this occurs is because in older Intel CPUs, accessing the JTAG by the way stands for Joint Test Action Group, required a special device which plugged into a debugging port in the motherboard. Therefore, to access JTAG was extremely difficult. You couldn't just, randomly plug in a USB stick, basically. However, this changed with Skylake. When it was introduced in 2015, Intel gave us the DCI, which stands for Direct Connect Interface. The issue with this is it provides JTAG access simply via a USB 3.0 port. Just to clarify here, there is no software or hardware manipulation which is required. In other words, this is not something that you would necessarily need to enable or have no antivirus to be vulnerable to. In fact, that's kind of where it gets worse. Whether you have Norton, whether you have Bitdefender, whether you have the latest updates to Windows 10, whether you are running Linux, whether you are running SUSE, whether you're running Ubuntu, whether you're running SteamOS, or whether you happen to be running DOS, it's irrelevant. Essentially, this bug is in the hardware, and so there's nothing that you can do about it. Just to clarify, however, there are a few further caveats. Some manufacturers' BIOSes may well block DCI configurations out of the gate, however, many would not. This caveat means that your device might theoretically be safe, whereas someone else's device may not be safe. The other thing is that even if your machine was technically manufactured with DCI typically disabled, an attacker could change the BIOS configuration with a flash programmator. However, that would be very unlikely since it would require physical access of the equipment, storage, or other usage. So it's not that likely. So the more likely thing is that the device that you've bought would not have DCI disabled, it would be enabled out of the box, and therefore that device would be susceptible. Now I know what you're going to say, how do I know if that's the case or not? Well, unfortunately we don't at the moment. So if you are someone who's very security conscious, I would either suggest writing to your manufacturer or start doing some serious Googling. Because, well, I can't help you on that one. Obviously, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. So, I am grateful that it is only affecting a small minority. I guess minority is a bit of a strong word, but it's certainly not all Intel CPUs, and it is only, once again, the 6th generation or later, but that is still an awful lot of devices. So if a malicious attacker, technically speaking, does want to get access to your account, into your device, it does give them that extra ability to do so, which could suck. So, just be that little bit more careful. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video, or maybe not if you're someone who actually has bought one of these processor-based devices. But I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.